Hello, everyone. Today is Friday, October 3rd, 2025. This is your update for Monday the 6th. All right, let's go. Well, as far as official setups, I do like this KYTX. It's volatile and it is a biotech. We already have two biotechs in the portfolio. One hit the IPT, obviously one did not. So we don't have a full slot open. If you want to be a little bit more conservative, go with a half a position just so we don't have that much exposure. I'm going to go ahead and go with a full position and just follow the methodology in its full as opposed to taking a half position. But technically, you probably should go with a half position just because of the overweighting there. Not a bad day overall in the portfolio. We'll get to that in just one second. Not a whole lot to look at tonight, but as the market changes, I'm sure we'll see more and more. Here's a KYTX, a bit of a pullback, and then you got a TKO move within a pullback, and that's a pattern that I like. I'm a big fan of TKOs, as you likely know. And why I like this is the market's pulling back, and people think it's just a pullback, and then you get the knockout, and that knocks out a few more people. As you know, everything I do is based on the psychology of the market. It does have some issues longer term, but yeah, that'll be a good problem to have if we get way up there. So I'm not going to be too worried about that based on the distance and how long ago it was. Let's take a look at the portfolio, and then let's pop out, obviously, to the overall market and drill down a bit. CIFR tailed higher, came back in, unfortunately, but it did manage to close at brand new highs. And as a trend guy, I'm not going to argue with that. Not quite all-time highs, but new highs nonetheless. So we're going to go ahead and bump the stop a little bit on that one. Also, since this is such a volatile stock, don't split hairs should it spike up toward that initial profit target. It still has a way to go. Even with today's tail, wasn't that close, but just as a general statement, just keep that in the back of your mind. ATAI up a little bit. This one's hanging in there. It still looks pretty good longer term. KTOS closed at all-time highs. As a trend guy, I'm not going to argue with that. TFPM down a little. Off its highs a little, up a little today, off its highs just a bit. One cup of coffee next time, Dave. But looking pretty good longer term. KGC up a smidge. If you squint your eyes, you can see it. Not too far from all-time highs. ABCL off to the races, unfortunately coming back in, outside day down. Not the end of the world, though. Still looks pretty good. The breakout so far remains intact. I hate to use the word hope, but hopefully it doesn't come back in too much. Let's take a look at the overall market and then drill down a bit. First of all, S&P 500, not a whole lot to report, but it did manage to close just a tiny smidge higher, and that's enough to keep it at all-time highs. As a trend guy, I'm not going to argue with that. I would like to see it accelerate higher and then have an orderly pullback as opposed to beginning to drift, but I wouldn't get too excited just yet. But if we continue to have some drifting action, then we'll reevaluate the situation, obviously. Take a look at the NASDAQ, down a little, but just consolidating at high levels. I wouldn't get too excited about that either. Rusty 2000, look at that. Maybe the small caps will pick up the torch. Off its best levels, but a decent day nonetheless, closing right at these all-time highs. So as a trend guy, you know the routine. I'm not going to argue with that. Biotech, look at that, banging out new highs with a little bit of vigor. In fact, for the IBB, that's all-time high. So that obviously is a good thing. Bitcoin, decent day there too. GBTC near these all-time highs. Bitcoin itself, the spot market at least, has a little ways to go, but looking pretty good. Ideally, though, I like to see it break out and not look back for a while, then look to play the pullbacks along the way. Gold and commodity right at brand new highs, so that's a good thing. Gold stocks just kind of Flatsville today, but just off of all-time highs. So let's not get too excited about that. Defense kind of drifting a little bit in here, but it still looks pretty good. Nice little persistent uptrend remains intact there, so that's looking pretty darn good. Clean energy, I should say. Still doing pretty good. It has a lot of overhead resistance to overcome it. We'll see what happens on a setup by setup basis. Obviously, there. Robotics band, brand new multi-year highs, not quite all-time highs. Silver, the commodity, up a little, so that's brand new highs for silver. That's looking pretty darn good. Semiconductors, taking a little bit of a breather, but they've been on a pretty good tear as of late, so that's looking pretty darn good. So the bottom line is, for the most part, things are still looking pretty good. Nothing to get too excited about one way or the other just yet, but for the most part, on the long side, obviously, things are looking good. So stay excited about the long side, but let's not worry about anything too much for now. I guess there's always something to worry about. Anyway, I think that's plenty for today. You get the idea. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. If you have any questions, I'll be around all weekend, and I'll be checking in on Facebook. So feel free to hit me up there. Everybody have a great weekend, and we'll talk again on Monday. Thank you so much.